talking about magic and team building and creative thinking. And that was something that we kind of got to. When I was building what I was going to do, it was like, well, what is it you actually do? And we dug into it and said, well, it's about creative thinking. And in a sense, even this conversation and these podcasts, it's about creative thinking or being creative, and what is the drive and what is interesting about that. And why is it interesting? I mean, there seems to be such a huge demand for this stuff, and people are, intrigued. And why is it some are more interesting than others? But we want to hear. We want to delve deeper. We want the nuance of conversation.
Sure.
We want the nuance of finding the answer, changing people's minds, being adaptable.
We've been sold the easy stuff for a long time.
Yeah.
We've been sold a lot of marketing crap for a long time. We've been sold the low-hanging fruit, and the same rhetoric has been banded out. And I've always said to all organizations I work with, or all individuals as well, because I still do a bit of private consultancy, the challenge for me is that it's one of the stuff I love most, I'll be honest, Paul, is the private stuff. But the problem is when you reach a sort of earning threshold, it pushes most people out, because for you to say, can I have a day of your time for you to guide me through stuff? That's a day of my time I can't work on my business, but also that somebody else can't, pay me to work on a project that has a much more significant fee. So finding the sweet spot to be able to say, yes, that's fine, but I'm not 150 quid, and I'm not 500 pounds either. So, immediately, right. And the people that need that information, that want access to that, probably don't necessarily have the fees that I need to charge to warrant, giving you. But the rub is that I'm not going to sit and give you rubbish. I'm going to roll my sleeves up physically and metaphorically and get into what you need to get, because you don't leave the house or the farm until we're done, right? You arrive with the set of problems and you leave with them solved or with some solutions for them. So, but it's the tiny little detail is where the magic happens. And often it's the simplest of things is where the real magic happens. We're doing masses of work at the minute with one of our brands here. And I mean, it feels like we pull every gear out of the business, every cog, every tiny bit of it out. And I keep finding bits and I go, that's why this bit over here doesn't work, because this tiny little thing, there's like a little rub there, a little kind of jam, and you solve that tiny, and the tiny bit was a graphic. And it's a bit difficult without going into context to explain it, but that's the detail, is that if this graphic isn't right, it's going to jar, and that changes the customer journey. So by the time they get here, they're not going to behave how I want them to because of something that happened over here. And you can multiply that out in many different ideas and concepts. But it's the same thing with magic as well. Magic isn't something I perform as me. I have a pseudonym, and it's something I don't talk about as a core. It's a distant brand. I do it over there out the way because it becomes really confusing. So you go back to the beginning, and you were saying, you do so many different things. Well, I do, and some of them conflict actually. And I think also there's an element of you can't be everything to an expert degree, because it takes time to invest in each of those things. So I think there needs to be a balance, and there's different bits of my time and investment goes into those different areas. But the same thing with magic with regards to the detail. I spent, I reckon over £1,000 on playing cards to find the right ones that because it's the right one that makes the difference. Yeah. Obviously, technically, it has to be good for me to handle in order for me to make the magic happen.
Right.
But more importantly, it also has to look right for the character, fit right for the environment, all that kind of jazz. And, it's that level of detail that I think is missing from magic, coming back to an earlier discussion point that we touched on.
Yeah.
But I think it's that level of detail that's missing from an awful lot of brands and an awful lot of perhaps creative thinking. Coming up with ideas is easy. Coming up with the right ideas, or ideas that fit or that resonate, that's more complicated.